Well, good morning. Hope you're doing well. I'm in my favorite little spot back here to do these videos, which is the back porch of the church. But the weather's been great for this, so here we are again. And on Thursday mornings, we've been looking at and considering the suffering servant passages from Isaiah. So this morning, we're picking that up and we're continuing with the next suffering servant passage, which is in Isaiah chapter 60. If you know the context for Isaiah's writing and the time period of his prophecy, when you first read this passage, you might initially think that Isaiah is talking here about Israel's release from captivity from Babylon, who had taken them into captivity. But it very quickly expands, and you begin to realize that what's in view is really God not just coming to redeem and set free this nation Israel, but much larger than that, that God is somehow going to come and set the whole world free and put everything right. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And the metaphor that runs throughout this passage is one of light. So if you want to read some verses in Isaiah chapter 60 and look for this theme of light, now would be a good time to pause the video and go read Isaiah 60 verses 1 through 5, and then maybe pick up in verse 15 down to verse 22. The whole passage, the whole chapter you could read, but those are the primary verses I'm going to be looking at this morning. So go ahead and read that and come back. All right, first, so we've got this theme, this metaphor of light running throughout. So here's the three things I want us to see in this passage. One, I want us to see the light that shatters the darkness. And then I want us to see the light that beautifies. And then finally, the light that lasts forever. So first, the light that shatters the darkness. The word sun doesn't show up until later in the passage, but in the opening couple of verses, it's very clear that that's the metaphor, that God is being compared to the sun that rises and shatters the darkness, even the thick darkness. And you know, darkness throughout the Bible is a picture and a metaphor for the human condition, that we are blind, that we are evil, that we are sinful, that we are rebellious, that we are lost in darkness. And this passage is saying that when God arises and shines, He's going to open our eyes to see things the way they really are and take us out of our blindness. He's going to open our eyes to our blindness, if you can follow that little paradox there. Open our eyes to see our sin and to see our need and to see our lostness. But He's also going to show us that He is the source of the light that can restore our sight and heal our lives. I wish I could do more with this, but in John chapter 8, it's a famous place where Jesus, one of Jesus' I am sayings in the book of John, where He stands up and He says, I am the light of the world. He's saying, I'm the one who has come into the world to shatter the darkness and to set you free. And by the end, we'll say more about that. But this is Jesus. Jesus is saying, I'm the sun that will rise upon you and shatter the darkness. All right, second, the light that beautifies. The light makes God's people beautiful. God comes and He makes His people beautiful. So in verse 3, you'll notice that all of a sudden, he says that nations will come to your light and kings to the brightness of your glory. And then in verse 5, it says that God's light makes us radiant. And then even later on, I didn't have you read this passage, but later on, nations we're told, will be coming from afar. And we ask the question, why? And verse 9 says, because the Lord God has made you beautiful. This is just a little illustration, but you know how mirrors work. A mirror only works when it's facing the light, because that's what a mirror does. It reflects light. And the picture here is that When we are facing the light, when we are facing Jesus, when we are fixed upon Him, we begin reflecting His beauty in this world. Facing Him, depending upon Him and His grace and mercy, we begin reflecting humility and love and righteousness and faithfulness and boldness, and we become peacemakers, and on we could go. It is in facing God in the person and work of Jesus that we begin to reflect God's beauty to a broken and dying world. You remember when Jesus is giving His disciples the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5 through 7, He calls us to be salt and light in this world. This is not just a future thing, but right now God is beginning to make us beautiful, more and more beautiful in Him. Okay, finally, the light that lasts forever. Here are some words that I pulled out of Isaiah 60. This runs throughout the course of the passage, but you'll see what I'm saying. So here are some words: forever, from age to age, no more, everlasting, days of mourning ended forever. So you've got this idea. This is a light that lasts forever. You know, in our experience, lights are constantly going out and being extinguished. And in this world, things are constantly decaying and breaking down, and things feel as though they are growing dim. Even our eyes grow to dim in our old age. But God is promising here a day when the light will never go out and never fade, when violence shall be no more heard, verse 18, when all our days of mourning are finished, verse 20, when the Lord will be our everlasting light, verse 19. And this is all, in Isaiah saying, we won't need the sun anymore because we will have the Lord Himself who will be our light. And this, of course, is fulfilled in the end of all things, is what we're told in Revelation chapter 22, when we no more need the sun because the Lord is upon His throne and He is our light. Now, how is that possible? Just real quick. Jesus came into this world as the light of the world, and He was lifted up on a cross. And when He was on that cross, darkness fell. You remember darkness covered the whole earth from noon till 3 o'clock that day. The height of the day, the sun was blotted out because darkness was falling upon Jesus. He took the darkness so that we could have the light forever and ever. I found this old quote that I had written down from C.S. Lewis, and I forgot how much I like this quote. It was very brief, but Lewis said about Jesus that He went down to come up again and to bring the whole ruined world up with Him. He went down to death for you, and darkness fell upon Him, but He has risen. And one day, someday, He will raise the whole ruined world up with Him. And in that day, He will be the sun that shatters the darkness, the light that beautifies us, the light that lasts forever. I hope this encourages you to look to Jesus, to face Him, and to reflect His beauty. And we'll see you again next week for the last suffering servant passage in Isaiah. Thank you.